Hello my lovelies, so this is Lizzie from Love From Lizi, and today I'm bringing you the March 2019 10 cards 1 kit video. As ever, I'm jumping straight in here with card number 1. I will try to give you some little updates throughout and as we go, but if you'd do me the service of commenting below as to which of the 10 cards is your favourite, I'd be very grateful, particularly as this kit is a little bit out of my comfort zone. Obviously, I really enjoy card making and I like challenging myself. However, following on from last month, which was exactly my favourite colour palette and obviously very close to my heart with theme, it's had quite a stark contrast to this. And I love fairies, I think they're beautiful, but it's not my comfort zone. So making cards which aren't necessarily your style, I'm very interested to see what everybody else really likes. So with the first card, I've eased myself in quite gently, and I've just taken one of the decoupage sheets, and I haven't popped all of the bits out because otherwise it can get quite thick, and particularly I know in the US you're quite restricted with how thick your cards can be before they start to charge you. So charge you extra, I should say. So all I've done here is I've popped out a few of the decoupage backing pieces, and I've got an ivory card base, and I'm cutting down some patterned paper. Now you'll notice in a moment that I did this with a pencil, and this is one of the shortcomings, is when you go, oh hang on, yeah, that's not big enough. I mistook a little line in the patterned paper for being my pencil line. So all is not lost, because I had intended to put a belly band around the card anyway, so I just cut the pink in half, and I've actually saved a little bit of patterned paper left, for leftovers. So all's well that ends well. But yes, so ideally, if you're going to use the pencil line trick, actually draw the lines in and cut them rather than just making a little notch like I do. I mean, I won't learn. I will continue to do that, but it's that's what led to this little mistake here. But it's hidden in the card, no one would know, so it's not a problem. So I'm just sticking these down with Nouveau Deluxe adhesive onto the front of my card base. And here I'm using the peel-offs from the kit. This is the middle width peel-off. And I'm just running it all the way around the edge and across the seams. So all of the joining lines with the patterned paper are going to be covered over. So having done that, I'm now putting some glue onto the back of the little topper that I made, which has got 3 layers high, but the first layer is glued onto the card front. And I've picked a sentiment saying, for a special friend, and because they pop out, some of them have little notches on, so I just trim those up with my scissors, popped some foam adhesive onto the back, and then I use the Nouveau drops, which are sweet lilac that come in the kit this month, and I just put 3 little dots, and I do those by eye. So I place the centre one and then I work out to the rest. Okay, so now we're on to card number 2. And this was in my head when I was sort of designing this. It did actually come out quite different, but I wanted to do a sympathy card. So I've taped only one side of my stencil down, and that's just so that I can flip it up to check to see what my coverage is like. And I'm using a foam blending tool with my Versamark here, just to get a good coverage. I've used the anti-static powder tool, flipped it up to check, saw that I needed a little more at the bottom, so I popped it on. And here I'm using the Fairy Dust Party embossing powder. This was an add-on to the kit this month, and it sold out super quick, but it will be restocked very soon, you'll be pleased to hear. And then, as ever, with these super fine embossing powders, I like to heat from the back, so that the air blasting from the heat gun doesn't actually move any of the dust around and cause little sprays. And I'm using the card base directly here, and I've put it into my medium-sized Misty because it's a very large stamp set, and I wanted to be able to choose where it went onto the card front as opposed to having to have it in another place because I was using my mini Misty. So anti-static powder tool and Versamark up the stamp, and I did stamp that image a few times. It's a large stamp, so it does need to have a really good firm press all over. And here I'm using my Spectrum Noir metallic pencils, and I am not doing anything special at all. I am filling the leaves and sort of the vines in the green, so I don't leave much of this in for you to get bored with watching. And also, it doesn't show up the best on camera, I'm afraid, because the pencils are metallic. They do shine, but it's it's not as stark as on white. And here I'm using 2 different blue coloured pencils, and I'm doing lighter towards the bottom and darker towards the top. And then I choose one of the sentiments that go with the stencil, and I've chosen Sending. I stamp that in Versamark and give it a double stamp just to make sure, and I'm trying to show you all the shine on it, but it doesn't really show. But that's Sending Love, and that's a 1-layer card. This next one is also a 1-layer card. I have a little bit of thing at the moment trying to do cards with as little dimension as possible. But anyhow, so I've got my dark blue card base, and I've put some anti-static powder tool on, and I'm using Bundled Sage Distress Oxide. And I'm very, very carefully selecting where I'm putting my embossing powder. And this is the Sparkling Snow, which is, again, an add-on to this kit. And I'm using the oxide as the sticky ink, and then using the paintbrush just to move it off of the stem of the dandelion where it went over. Heating from the back. Once it's melted somewhat, I'm able to go back on the front, and now I've got a very sparkly dandelion. Next, I've chosen 3 of the smaller little dandelion seeds, I guess, and I've popped those onto acrylic blocks. It's just easier than a stamping platform for this purpose. And I've used some masking tape, and I've stuck it to my arm before I stuck it onto the cardstock because I don't want it to tear my cardstock as it comes up. And I'm starting with the largest of the 3 little dandelions that I've chosen, and I'm just twisting and stamping, trying not to create a uniform pattern. I'm just using a little Hero Arts white pigment ink cube. It came in a kit, I think. All my my secrets are coming out now that I have bought lots of Hero Arts kits. Anyhow, I've now moved on to the teeny tiny one, and I'm just filling in the gaps. I like to start with the largest first and work my way down in size because you're able to space things a bit better. And then once I've decided that I've got enough of the background filled, I now want to make sure that where the masking tape is super obvious. So I'm taking that tiny little stamp and just working it around, making sure that I go over the edge of the tape, just so that there will be a clear line when we take that tape up. And because they're so itty bitty, it's not going to look too over the top, especially as they're not complete. So then I pull up all the tape, and this is the lovely reveal moment. And I'm being very careful because obviously the Hero Arts ink is pigment ink, so it will be wet for a while. If you're making this at home and you've got some time, let it dry, because it's, on such dark cardstock, it is almost asking to get, smeared. Okay, so now I've gone in with the peel-offs, and I've used the widest peel-off first, and I've left, I would say, about a 3 or 4 millimetre edge between where the tape was and where the peel-off went. And then I've gone around it again with the thinnest peel-off, and I've left the ends crossing one another. Now this is a die from my stash. This is the Sizzix Thinlits, and I'm just double checking what it's called. Of course I can't see it right now. I will list it. Oh, Tribal Words. It is listed in the store though. And there's lots of very cute little words. I die cut that from the pearlescent white cardstock from within the kit, and then using the Deluxe Nouveau adhesive, I'm just sticking that wish down towards the bottom. And then the little, I believe it's called the Tiddle, which is the little bit for the eye. I'm just popping that on as well, and I'm using my jewel picker to hold it because it makes it super easy. And that's the end of card number 3. Card number 4. This is showing that I didn't learn because it was 2 cards later I went back to using a pencil and the trimmer. I'm using some of the dark green gold specialty, and I'm cutting some of the patterned paper, and all I'm doing is the dark green gold is 1/4 of an inch smaller than the card base, and the patterned paper is 1/4 of an inch smaller than the card panel. So I work quite quickly through this, so feel free to obviously pause. But ultimately what I want to do is to create a circle window in the front of my card. And the process that I do, it looks really convoluted, but it means that the circles are in the right place. So I'm using 2 circle dies that sort of sit in amongst one another, and I'm pulling them in and pulling them out just to make sure that everything goes in the right place. You could, of course, lay these all into your die cutting machine at once and run it through and cut all 3 at once. That is more than acceptable. I did with my dark green panel, I cut a larger circle so that it's a little bit more forgiving, and it's sandwiched between the card base and the top anyway. So as it happens, I was a little bit out, I wasn't quite perfect, so knowing that I was putting a frame on top, I knew that I could trim away and that would be hidden. So again, lining up at the edges, making sure everything was right, and then I'm just gluing these down. I'm going to have these all flat, and then once that's adhered down, I then get some glue behind my little bubble, my little fairy bubble. So very sweet. And I put her into the centre of the green, which was the waste from the panel. And now I've cut a frame from some of the patterned paper by using those 2 stitched circle dies together. I'm having to trim down the foam squares from the kit a little bit just to make sure that they go nicely, but then that just covers up all of the secrets within. And I put some glue onto the back of my fairy bubble. Choose which way I want her to go up, and then I line her up in the front, and then I close the back of the card onto it. And then once I've got it closed, open it up and give it a good nice press. Pop a few Nouveau drops on, and there we go. And the sentiment says, have a magical day. And now we're into card 5. So in this one, I've got the stamp set out again, and I've taken the big sort of corner spray, which will incidentally fit within the Mini Misty for my purposes here. And I've lined it up with a line on the grid mat at the bottom, if you can see there, just because these stamps are so intricate. If you pull it up and the paper moves even 0.5 millimetre, it will show when you press it again. So I do make sure that I have a point of reference to be able to keep the cardstock to it. You could, of course, put some adhesive on the back of the cardstock, because this is a card panel, so you'd get away with that. But this is what I'm doing. I'm really I'm picking it up, giving it a press, and really leaning hard on it, and I'm happy with it. On the second impression, it was fine. And here I am using the Forest Green embossing powder. Again, it was another add-on this month. I really enjoyed the embossing powders, as you may be able to tell. Heat set from the back until it's sort of semi-molten, and then go back in on the front as well, just to sort of eradicate any warping. There was quite a bit of warping on this, but I knew that I was sticking this onto a card base, so it wasn't going to be too much of a problem. As I had the bundled sage nearby, and it worked well with this, I just got a little finger dauber and went over the greenery just to soften it up a little bit on the white pearlescent cardstock. And then I am going through the thanks, which I've sort of put on a jaunty angle, and I'm not ink blending, I'm sort of stippling. I want it to be not irregular but somewhat uneven, just so that it looks a little bit more organic. And then I take the sending sentiment again and use that bundled sage ink pad just to stamp sending on top. Now, if I'd have had my wits about me, I would have adhered this panel onto my card front, onto my card base now, because instead I decided to do the sequins, and this is how I always do sequins. I just sort of randomly move the glue around, trying not to pay too much attention, and then just pop the sequins in, trying to keep the larger ones to one end. So you see, this is the trouble that I had now, that I was trying to put the adhesive foam onto the back whilst the sequins were all wet. It's fine, and I could have waited until they were dry, but as is the way that I make cards, I sit down and I have to finish them as soon as I sit. So anyhow, we are now on to our next card, and this one I'm being a bit decadent, and I'm using the gold pearlescent specialty cardstock from the kit, and I'm going to make a spinner card, so that's a little spoiler alert there for you. And I'm telling you this because when you're watching, I have a tip, and that is, don't do what I do. When you die cut your circle, which is what I'm currently doing, I'm just lining up the pattern paper, move it further down on your card base. I had it quite high because I knew that I wanted to put a big sentiment on, but it did create a few problems for me with attaching the thread. So It works and it's fine and it does its job, it spins. However, it did become a little bit fiddly. So I have die cut my base and my panel, and I'm now die cutting the fairy out of the waist from the centre of the card base, and I die cut her twice. And here I've got this thread. Now I say it's thread, it's like clear plastic and it looks dark on the spool, but it is actually see-through. So I'm using some double-sided sellotape on the front of one of the fairies, and then using my tweezers I'm placing the thread in. And because there isn't a straight line down the middle of the fairy, I am using two separate pieces of thread, and I'm just picking where I want the top to be for the spinning aspect and where I want the bottom to be for the spinning aspect, because when you pull those threads taut, that will make her stand in the way that she should. So now putting some double-sided adhesive just on top of that thread as well to sandwich it, and using some Deluxe Nouveau adhesive. That was on my desk, so that gets used a lot. It's if something's on hand, it will always get used a lot. I sandwich my two fairies together now, and I have die cut that patterned circle down a size smaller, so I've got another circle die out. And now I'm removing the card front, and this is when I realise, I think, oh, this is ever so slim up here. So as I say, it's doable, certainly can manage, however, much easier if you leave a bigger gap. So what I've done is I've used some glossy accents, because I believe on my desk, short of multimedia matte, that is the strongest glue that I have. And so I pop that down, and then I lay my threads into it, and then I go over both the top and the bottom with double-sided tape, just again to give it a bit of a firmer hold. Trim off the ends of the thread, and then use some glossy accents again, because it was right by my hand, to adhere that down. I do remove the backing off of the double-sided tape, and then place it carefully. Now the thing to line up here firstly was the circle. It was one of the reasons I wanted to use glue instead of tape. You line up the circle and then make sure all the edges are straight, and then just give it a really good firm press, particularly over the edges where the threads were. And I've chosen one of the sentiments, which is Have a Magical Day. It's one of the little pieces that I've popped out from the decoupage sheets, and I'm only putting foam squares on the bottom right hand corner, because that top piece will overhang slightly into the open circle. And then you can twist her up, and then when you open it, there she spins. So that is card 6. Here's card number 7. And this is another sort of decoupage, but it's a shaker version. So I'm just showing you how I've used the frame. So I've popped out 3 layers plus one of the sentiments and one of the butterflies. So the first layer I am just foam layering up and popping onto the front. And I'm being quite generous with these foam. The decoupage itself is a cardstock, so it will hold up. It doesn't need that much foam if you want to be a little more sparing with it. And then for this next layer, because it's got the circle cut, it was begging to be made a shaker with. So I've just cut a piece of acetate down, and again, glossy accents was on my desk. And it is also very good for bonding acetates and cardstock together. And now I'm just using, this is age-old technique I always do, make sure that your foam tape is folded in half before you try and cut it, and then snip it and remove both the front and the back release papers so that you can bend it into the little shape that you need it to. The thinner the strip you cut, the easier it is to bend. Then once I've created my circle with no gaps, I put some anti-static powder tool in there, and then I'm scooping some sequins. This little scoop is amazing, because sometimes sequins, particularly with me, are static. That scoop just saves the day. And then I lay down the decoupage on top. I snip off any of those little hangy pieces from where I've popped it out. And here, that butterfly, I've sort of folded her wings up so that just her body is flat, and then I pop a little bit of glue behind her body and sit her proud onto the shaker window. And here I'm cutting 1/2-inch strips of one of the pearlescent pattern papers from the kit, and then just attaching those a 1/2 inch down from the top and from the bottom of the card, snipping the edges off, and then I run a peel off over either end, and I pop one of each of the stickers as well. I'm afraid my camera stopped recording, and I popped the Just For You on the inside. So here now we're on to card 8. And this one, I wanted to use these little iridescent fairies, and I didn't want to make another shaker card because, you know, you'd already seen one of those. So I was playing around and decided I wanted to make a background with them. So yeah, this is what I came up with. I would like to quickly note this kit sold out in 6.5 hours, just under 6.5 hours. It was super fast. Like, didn't have any concept of how popular it would be, and we did manage to restock once, but again it sold out in a matter of hours. So I know there are still quite a lot of people that wanted this kit that couldn't get hold of it. So I'm doing a giveaway on Instagram currently, and it is open until the 12th of March. So you've got plenty of time. It'll be my first sneak peek that I'll announce the winner in. And if you just head over to the Love From Lizi Instagram page, the link is going to be below in the description. You'll be able to comment on there and be in with a chance to win this kit. So here you're seeing now that I've stuck all the fairies down into the middle pieces, and now this is the sort of the finicky bit. And I only have to cut up 2 of those little fairies. So look away if you're slightly faint-hearted. But I just pop the glue behind where it needs to be, and then stick that down. And then I've taken the I Believe in Fairies ribbon, which I thought was very cute, and tied a bow around one of the charm wands. And I've left the tails really long on the ribbon so that they actually hang off the side of the card, but I want the sentiment to be really obvious because I'm not going to put another one on there, and I thought it made it quite whimsical and very cute. And again, I use glossy accents because it has that firm hold. And once I'd stuck this wand down, I did actually put a couple of misties, my foam tape and a trimmer on top to give it a really good weight. So, card number 9. So here, this is my effort at stamping and colouring. I always feel a little bit bashful about Copic colouring in my videos because I am no expert. So here you'll see that I really inked that up. I didn't want to have to go back in again and ink that up because it's such a detailed stamp. I didn't want it to shift or jog slightly, and it came perfect first time, so that's great. And I've also stamped my little fairy there. So I am using Copic markers. I'm going to try to keep up with this whilst we're going. YG67 currently, which is the lighter of the 2 greens. And then I will jump in with some G29 just in the centre of the leaves, just to sort of give them a little bit of shape. The thing is, with a pattern this detailed, I don't believe it's necessary to go in and do lots of heavy shading and blending. I mean, if that's your thing and you have the patience for it and the time, hooray for you. I wish I did. But I wanted to focus on the fairy, so this aspect was the background. So I put a little bit of extra in. As you can see here, I just put a little dash line along the centre of those leaves, and then I came back in with the YG67 just to sort of blend it out a bit, but give those leaves a little bit of shape. And I coloured everything. There are some little blooms at the top of these flowers, but I coloured those green as well, just so that it didn't take anything away from my little fairy. So we have got a super special surprise coming. I'm not sure how far I'm able to talk about it as yet, but we've got something really super special with a design team coming. So keep your eyes peeled. And here we go. Right, so now let me move into, on the skin tone, I'm just doing some very simple E00, and then where I want the shadow to be, E21, and then going back in with the E00 just to smooth those lines. And now I'm choosing some pinks. So I did use a little bit of R20 on her cheek, and for her skirt and her top, or her dress if it's all one piece, the lightest shade I used is R11, and then R20 and R22. And I start with my lightest colour and cover off the skirt, and then I move into the middle colour, and to be honest, I follow the lines of the stamp. If there is a dark line, I'll put some shade there. That when there's folds in skirts, I think that's the simplest way to explain it. And then I move into my darkest colour, which is my R22, and I just do exactly the same as I did with the R20, but just make the lines even thinner. And then I work back to the R20 to blend that out, and then back again to the R11. So it's sort of like up and down the colourways. And the same for the bodice. Her little sleeves, I used the YG67. So the headpiece and the little blooms there, and her shoes as well. And then her hair, which I'm actually very proud of. I think it looks very good. I'm hoping that you'll be able to pick that up from the still shot. But the three colours that I used here are E35, and then the middle colour is E37, and the darkest shade is E47. Again, I'm no great colourist, and I'm not professing to have skills that need to be copied, but this worked for me, and I think she looks very sweet. So again, I went in with the E35 and covered off all of her hair, and then I went in with the E37 within the curls, within the darker areas, just making sure to leave the flicks of her curls light. And then again with the darkest, with the E47, just touching into those same areas again, but just on a smaller scale. Now on her wings, I used my Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen, and I did the same also for the butterfly wings. Again, it's just that I didn't want to take too much away from this lovely little fairy. And once they were all sparkly, I got the glossy accents. I'm telling a lie. I fussy cut her out. Fussy cutting is one of my most loathed things about card making, I'm afraid to admit. It doesn't sit well with me. I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed and I use right-handed scissors, or I'm not sure what it is, but it always seems to bend my image and I get very cross. So anyhow, I have foamed up the back of my little fairy and a sentiment, which again I've just stolen from one of the decoupage sheets, saying thank you very much, which is very cute. I'm sure Scott will appreciate that, especially as it's pink. And now I'm using the glossy accents on her wings and her butterfly. And it makes sense to do it now once you've stuck it all down, which, you know, it's not really my style. I like to sort of do things back to front. But that's the end of card 9. So card number 10. And this one was a little bit of a challenge to myself because I wanted to use up some of the bits that were left over from previous cards. So I've taken some of the pattern paper and I've die cut a small circle from that. And I'm just taping that down. I have just cut that to be 1/4 of an inch shorter and narrower than my card base, which I'm using the silver pearlescent cardstock. And then I've put one of the stickers which says make a wish in the centre. And I'm now attaching some buttons onto these waist circles. I did use the smaller circle on the cardstock circle. And then I'm popping some foam tape on the back, and because it is a paper, I have given it quite a good coverage to make sure it doesn't lag or sag anywhere. Pop that on top of my card base, allowing the sentiment to sort of peep through. And at this point, I got my little finger dauber, which still had some of the bundled sage on it, and just wanted to go around the edges of both the inner circle and the outer edges. So with hindsight, it would have been better to do this before I'd stuck this down, but as the pearlescent cardstock is non-porous, it actually was quite tolerant to me doing this without absorbing any of the colour into the back. So just gave that a little smattering over just so that it didn't look quite so stark, and it gave the buttons a chance to dry as well. And now I'm going over the Make a Wish with my glossy accents, but I'm not going over the whole sticker, I'm just going around the inside of the glitter frame. There's like an iridescent glitter frame in there. And then using the Oxide bundled sage again, just going around the edge of each of these circles just to tie them all in. I did just have to have a little check there that I hadn't just put that into the glossy accents. I hadn't, which, you know, was positive. Okay, and now Deluxe Nouveau adhesive onto the back, because cardstock to paper, this glue is perfect for that. And then just arranging them into sort of like a wobbly line that goes sort of from the top right to the bottom right. And has a little curve to it, and I layer them up a little bit just so that they look a little more organic, and then come in again with the Nouveau drops and just to create sort of like a random spray around all of these buttons and things, circles floating around. So that's the end of card 10. So my kit leftover product, I still have a navy card base and quite a lot of the white Copic, 2 pieces of the specialty. I have my stamp and stencil set, of course. Now I have 5 complete sheets of decoupage. I have one that I've only pinched a sentiment out of, and then one that's still got a good set of decoupage and one that's only got a butterfly left. And then I still have 6 full sheets of patterned paper, 2 of which are glittered. And then I have still 2 big pieces of patterned paper and 4 smaller pieces, scrappy pieces. I have got 3 full sheets of stickers and then another sheet which I've used less than half, obviously Nuvo drops, a whole sheet of foam squares, more than half a sheet of foam squares, lots of ribbon, my little fairy stamp. I've got 2 shaker bottles, I've got 2 wands, 5 buttons, lots of sequins and fairies. And now this is all the add-on product, so this is stuff that didn't come into the kit that I used as well. So I've got my regular tools like my misties, my trimmers, my die cutting machine, I've got my heat gun, my foam tape, coffee filter, various tapes, anti-static, eraser, a bone folder, scoreboard, and then I have my scoop, my pick, my tweezers, my knife, the thread, acrylic block, the deluxe adhesive, some various inks, my blending tools, the Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, a whole lot of dies, circle dies this time, and that one wish die, 3 of my embossing powders that I released this month, the little Hero Arts ink pad, the Spectrum Noir metallic pencils, the Copics that I ran through at the time, my stamp cleaning buddy, and these are the still shots of the cards. I really do hope that you've liked them and that you enjoyed them. The design team are working full steam ahead. I've had reports from all of them about how they're enjoying themselves. So do subscribe and check back for those videos. Again, as before, if you can let me know which is your favourite, I'd be very keen to know, because this isn't my usual style of card making. So I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable. Thanks ever so much for sticking with me till the end, and until next time, happy paper crafting. Thanks, lovelies. Bye.